Buffalo's perched.
I'll show you perched.
All right. Well, in typical third and wrong fashion, we have quickly pivoted. Zencaster is letting us down. We are recording right now, so we thought, hey, let's get some video content. People are at home, not doing much, and you know what they could use right now? They could use our three faces right now talking football. So, Ozzy, before Zencaster crapped out, you were talking about your thoughts on Nickelodeon airing games during Wildcard Weekend simultaneously with CBS. I think it cut out around there. So do you want to reshare your thoughts on what it would mean for Nickelodeon to tune in, or for you to tune into Nickelodeon?
Well, I got to do it at least for the first year that they're doing it. But I definitely, if SpongeBob isn't a part of the broadcast, then that'll be the only time that I tune into the Nickelodeon game. Because that would be the only reason for somebody of my age to tune in, unless you guys are still, maybe there's another Nickelodeon show you guys just enjoyed that just tickled you. But
Johnny Bravo, man.
Johnny Bravo was Nickelodeon? Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah. Or was that Cartoon Network?
That was Cartoon Network, actually.
Oh, wow.
Man. This is taking me down memory lane.
Danny Phantom. Did you guys ever watch Danny Phantom?
Yeah.
I think Yu-Gi-Oh was on
oh, yeah.
on Nickelodeon, so that was a big one for me, man.
Fairly Odd Parents, I think. I don't know, because
I didn't get that was YTV.
Yeah, well, YTV, I think, didn't they share some of the same things? I didn't get Nickelodeon. I just had cable as a kid, so I got YTV channel TV or something like that, or 20.
Channel 20, yeah.
Yeah, and then Teletoon was channel 37 or 38. I don't know how I remember this, but
impressive.
Yeah, we get to football, but I kind of want to talk about some of these cartoons. But Zach, if Yu-Gi-Oh was a part of the Nickelodeon network, then I would totally dabble in a Yu-Gi-Oh themed Nickelodeon called game. That would be lit. Him and Joey Wheeler, they got their their decks or whatever on their little on their arm thing.
Right before the game, they're like, it's time to
Holy crap.
Man. Anyways, free agency, that champions are made and lost in free agency. This is where, no, I'm kidding. But free agency is important, guys. And you know what? Teams win and lose in free agency because you can look like a winner, other end like a 6-10 team and missing the playoffs, or teams strategically spend like the Patriots, Seahawks, Steelers have typically done. And what you get from that is properly built football teams that don't go over the cap. But we're going to take all that into account, and we're going to recap kind of our favorite teams of free agency and what we felt were the worst free agencies for certain teams. And guys, let's kick it off with the Houston Texans. Not a lot needs to be said more than the DeAndre Hopkins trade. We talked about this quite at length, I think, when it happened, but in the grand scheme of things, it still doesn't make any more sense 3 weeks later. Hopkins is a premier talent. Even if he is butting heads with Coach Bill O'Brien, I still you have to find a way to make that work. And David Johnson, and they said they want to upgrade their running back room, but I don't think that's the way to do it because I think they're paying David Johnson a lot of money. I'd have to Google how much, but I don't like this move at all. And I think that alone puts him in one of the worst free agencies. Was oddly enough a trade. And then they went and signed Randall Cobb to a 3-year deal where he's getting $9 million a year, I think.
Yeah, it's something. It was $27 million over 3 years.
Yeah, so it's baffling to me these moves. Now turned to cryptically tweet Twitter about not being wanted or things like that. It's just really weird. It's really weird. It's been a bad start to the offseason. Ozzy, thoughts on the Texans?
Man, you hit the nails on the head because it starts with the Hopkins trade, and then it's kind of like it adds insult to injury to sign Randall Cobb, who can't even compare. And then you get a declining David Johnson. And for the Texans, who retained some of Jadeveon Clowney's contract when he was traded to the Seahawks last offseason, Why didn't they ask for the Cardinals to retain some of David Johnson's 10 million or whatever the hell he's owed? Like that just totally blows my mind that they would be willing to overspend on a guy who has that potential but is also aging and hasn't shown that potential in what, 2 years? Like it seems like inept general managing, and I mean, we've we've talked about this at length, but Bill O'Brien is just not fit to be a general manager. I just hate to see it, and Deshaun Watson hates to see it, and he's going to be a Patriot in 2021. So
Oh, okay. Well, let's skip that. Zach, thoughts on the Texans free agency thus far?
Yeah, I don't really have a ton to add. I can tell you guys they signed a safety from the Browns. His name's Eric Murray, 3-year deal, 20 million. We were paying him a lot less when he was with us, but yeah, I don't have much to add. They didn't get enough back for Hopkins. It was an ugly deal for arguably the premier wide receiver in the league. And when you look at Johnson, what are you getting? An expensive second string running back. So I'm with you guys on that.
Have you
man,
guys ever seen a team potentially play themselves out of like they won the division last year, and I think they just played like I can't see this team winning more than 8 games unless Deshaun Watson is like absolutely heroic. Like I look at the Titans and I look at the Colts. I mean, they had some pretty good off seasons, and they might not be done yet, especially the Titans looking at Clowney. I
Yeah.
think this Texans team might have played themselves out of a playoff spot.
I agree. Yeah, that could be
honestly,
very well so. Man, if it speaking on that, if Tennessee goes out and gets Clowney, man, that first of all, Seattle fans will be like, oh my god, but everyone else will be like, oh shit, in the AFC because they're coming fresh off an AFC championship, not win. They were at the AFC championship,
The
then getting
finalists.
yeah, okay, you get what I'm saying.
it's
All
so
right.
true, Steve. You don't win a Super Bowl by trading away top end talent every single year. Well, like it doesn't make sense to me that you've traded away your best player for the past what, 7 years in DeAndre Hopkins. He's produced without a good quarterback for this long, gets a good quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and then you trade him away because you want to be a run first team. Okay, like this doesn't add up.
Oh,
You're gonna put your faith in Randall Cobb and Will Fuller, who Will Fuller can't
no.
play a full season, and Randall Cobb is on the decline, evidently. So again, I mean, I've already said it, but it totally baffles me. But you can't win a Super Bowl by trading away your top end talent. That's my point. Period.
Wait till they trade Watson.
Yeah,
Oh
to the Patriots. It's
God.
happening.
To
You want
the
to enter a
Patriots for a
rebuild?
seventh, right, Ozzy? Yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen. Can't wait. Moving on. Next on the list, the Chicago Bears. And we'll save the guy I want to talk about the most last. But the first contract is Jimmy Graham. They signed him for 2 years, $16 million. Guys, I know a lot of people like to think about Jimmy Graham and still think about the days in New Orleans or even his couple years in Seattle where he was producing at a decently high level. But we're past that point now. I mean, he was in that Aaron Rodgers. He was with Aaron Rodgers last year, and I don't really think he was a factor. I mean, even in the divisional game against Seattle, I don't remember him really showing out. It was the Devontae Adams show where he just kept burning Trey Flowers, and I'm scarred from it. But Jimmy Graham, and now he's going to play for either Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles. I'm not a big fan of the move, guys. Starting with Jimmy Graham there, and then they went and paid Robert Quinn 5 years, $70 million. Robert Quinn, a very good pass rusher, but that's a long contract. I was checking over the cap on his cap numbers. They won't save any money by cutting him until 2023, and by then he'll be 33 years old. That's 4 years, and I'm struggling with that one. And then we can talk about the Nick Foles trade because I know, Zach, you're probably a little lighter on it than Ozzy and I are, but we'll save that one for last. But just on those two moves alone, guys, and then they signed Jermaine Ifedi to play guard. I don't know. We'll go to you first, Zach. What are your thoughts on the Bears? Your dad's a big Bears fan. Can't forget about that.
Billy Bob.
What's Bill thinking about all this? Billy Bob's Bears, man. Sure to kick my ass in fantasy, but in real life, I'm worried about these Bears.
He's not thinking too much on it right now. He's been watching a lot more on the coronavirus than he is his Bears right now. But no, I'll speak about it. I see the Bears as a loser too, and as you were saying, like Jimmy Graham over his 2 years with Green Bay, I think he scored 5 touchdowns or something with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him in total. And you're going to go pay him 8 million a year. To give you guys some kind of idea of how much they're just paying Jimmy Graham and Trey Burton, they are the highest. They're paying tight ends the most in the NFL at 10.23% of their total cap between Burton and Graham.
Oh,
Yeah, so
wow.
Burton can't stay healthy, and Graham is just not effective anymore since his time in New Orleans and a little bit with Seattle. Um, Quinn, I agree, Steve, inflated contract. I really like Quinn as a rusher, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's too inflated. And we can always jump on. The one thing, some of the things I do like about the Bears though is they're only paying 1.74% to running backs, and they actually have some good running backs there. They have Cohen and Montgomery, and I think Montgomery is going to develop very well. And I do like their O line talent and some of the defensive talent they have there. And yes, you guys are going to hear it from me, and I'm not going to jump too much into it because we all know where we stand with it. I am more in favor of the Foles trade than you guys are. You know, I've looked into his contract now. He only has a 15 million cap hit this year. It can be up to 20 million next year, and then after that, it can be dead money. Like not dead money. They can release him and not have dead money. They can save the cap. So it's only 2 years. If he needs to be a backup to Trubisky because he loses it, okay. If he comes out and he feels good in the system that he ran with Kansas City. I think he only played one game there that year or whatever, but he was with Nagy there. He's familiar. I don't hate it because you are looking at quarterbacks these days getting close to 30 million, 15 and 20 million for a guy who has the potential. I'm higher on this than you guys. I think he has a higher potential than what you say. But it's not actually as bad as everyone's making it out to be. But well, there would be a big argument on that on this podcast. I
Uh,
understand that. But that's just kind of where I sit with that. But I do right now, because of the inflated contracts of Jimmy and Quinn, I do think this more as a loss. It felt like just a grab at talent that was left over than them making the smart roster moves.
I'll say,
That's a
Zach,
good. Oh, sorry.
you kind of rationalized the Foles trade pretty good for me. I just giving up a fourth for him kind of stings, but if they're only paying 15 million this year and 20 next year, it's not the worst thing in the world, and it can't go any worse than Mike Glennon. And so we know like that's the floor. But Ozzy, your thoughts on the Bears free agency?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Steve, with overpaying Robert Quinn and Jimmy Graham. I don't know why you would appeal or why you're appealing to this older demographic of player. Robert Quinn, 30 years old and at 5 million, it's just you're paying a lot of money for an aging guy, and I'm not a fan of that. Speaking of paying money for an aging guy, they let a young Nick Kwiatkowski, who played linebacker last year in replacement for Danny Trevathan, they let him walk and go to the Raiders. Or wait, who did he go to? I think he went to the
I think,
Raiders.
yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
that sounds right.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then they re-signed Danny Trevathan, who is the older option and who was injured last year, to a 3-year deal. So they keep the 30-year-old Danny Trevathan and let 26-year-old Kwiatkowski leave. I mean, it just the Bears are just an old franchise and they just want the old players, I guess. I don't know what it is. Um, I mean, I don't want to take too much away from the Bears because they still have a really good defense as is, but it's just these moves that it's like long term, I don't think that it's going to pan out. And so for that reason, I have them graded one of the worst of this year. As for Foles, I would like to add, Zach, you did say it very good. 15 million this year is actually really good for a guy who's going to be competing as the starter. 20 million next year when he's back up because he loses the job because he's too inconsistent. That's where you lose me, and that's that's going to be a big oof when they trade when he's a $20 million backup. But 15 million for this year when he's probably going to win the job over Trubisky. That I can get behind.
Did they pick up Mitch Trubisky's 5th-year option? Because like if they don't and they let him walk next year, then it sounds like Foles would pretty much get handed the starting job. If that's the case, but
It matters how they do this year
it,
and then
it
drafting.
makes her yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think they're
still
gonna have to draft a guy next year, not this year, but next year.
yeah. I still
Foles
can't
will win a
believe
Super Bowl.
hindsight's 2020, but I still can't believe they didn't take Watson or Mahomes. Man, like I don't know about Mahomes that draft, but I knew a lot about Watson because of his run to the national championship. And like, imagine this team. Imagine that defense in 2018 when they lost to the Eagles on the double doink field goal. Imagine that team with Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, man. That's a Super Bowl winner. That might be a back-to-back Super Bowl winner the last 2 years if with that defense and either Patrick Mahomes and or Deshaun Watson. Like, I can't believe it. And they traded up for Mitch, man.
They traded so much to number 2 for
Number
Mitch
one
Trubisky.
spot.
Oh.
Yeah. Man, I you know what? And I'll come out and say it that in 2017, I wanted the Browns to get Mitch Trubisky at one point, and it is, you know, I have everyone has good takes, everyone has bad takes, and I'll come out and I'll sewer myself here.
Yeah.
I wanted Mitch Trubisky back then, and I will take full responsibility for that dumb take. Wow, imagine if we took Mitch Trubisky over Myles Garrett.
Oh,
man.
Boy.
I now, mind you, I wanted Mitch Trubisky at 4, or sorry, no, I wanted Mitch Trubisky later in that draft. I forget where we were. 4. We were at 4 in 2018. But we got Myles Garrett. I wanted Myles Garrett. Trust me, that was
yeah. I remember that. We watched
I
that one.
was hoping I was hoping that we got Mitch Trubisky somehow too. But thank God, I'm happy with Baker.
I love how Twitter.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I love how Twitter just roasts Trubisky every single week, and they just put up videos of him missing open throws and stuff. It's just my favorite thing on Twitter every NFL season.
Absolutely, man. But no, this Bears team now, mind you, they've lost free agency, but this isn't going to be a 4-12 team in my mind. Like, they have the talent on defense, I believe, as Zach mentioned. I'm not sure about their O-line. I mean, they signed a Fetty. I mean, that has to some kind of desperation. Sorry, I just don't like a Fetty. But I think the floor for this team's like 6 or 7 wins, but the ceiling with full fits in that offense well and takes off. I think the ceiling could be 10 or 11 wins. It's just long term, I don't like these moves of Jimmy Graham, especially Robert Quinn, and if Foles doesn't pan out, then you're looking at 6 or 7 wins. I would have rather they went and signed Cam Newton, but again, Tomac made some good points in our group chat, and I believe Zach too, that it maybe wasn't a fit scheme wise, and Foles' fit with Nagy in Kansas City probably helps out a lot too. So I get it, but.
On a quick note too, I think it might also be the fact that Nagy's going into his 3rd year. He had a really good first year, second year was a down year, and now maybe they're just trying to get all this talent in there to make another run to playoffs.
And those are small.
Yeah. Right. No, extremely small in the NFL. That's kind of, they're just, they have Mac there, get Quinn on the other side. Rush the quarterback, get hopefully someone in there, as they're hoping Nick Foles be this consistent player, but as we've seen, he can be very inconsistent. So maybe if they can find that consistency with him, so I'm going good here for all the good. If they go consistent, they get something good on defense going with the pass rush, and then moving forward with Nick Foles and say an RPO scheme. Maybe that's where they're hoping for success.
Fair enough. Guys, one team that we probably can't find as many good things to say about are the Jacksonville Jaguars. Having an absolute fire sale on all their talent. Strong points about these guys. The one that sticks out to me the most is the Calais Campbell trade. Obviously, Yannick Ngakoue. I think I said that right, Ozzy. It will likely be on the move. They're looking to trade him, but they're kind of asking for a high price, which rightfully so. They shouldn't have given up Calais Campbell for a 5th-round pick. That's unacceptable. But anyways, Zach, your thoughts on the Jaguars? I'll go right back to you.
I absolutely can't stand what the Jaguars are doing. There's a time to feel like you're going into a rebuild and you're going to sell the farm for the rebuild. But keeping Marone on staff as the head coach and selling all the talent, it feels like they're putting all their bags in, or sorry, all their, what is the expression?
Eggs in one basket.
Thank you, eggs in one basket. And they're sticking with Marone, but getting rid of all of their talent. Like when you thought of Jacksonville after the 2017 season, you're like,
Right.
this defense is the best defense in the NFL. We can't stop them. Okay, now looking fast forward a year and a half forward, they've traded all of them, got rid of every single one of them, have Allen left to rush the passer, but they've got rid of all the other talent. And it just, like, they still have a few linebackers. They've overpaid Joe Schobert, but that's what he was asking on the market. And I like their offense. I like Minshew Mania. I really like Chark and Dede. I hope I got that. Westbrook on there. Correct. Yeah. I like those things, but it's just too much all at once. I felt if they were going to go into a rebuild, move on from Marone. Most people felt like they were going to fire Marone. I think you guys would probably be in agreement with that. But no, they're sitting here with Marone still and getting rid of all their good players. Young, good players other than Campbell. But I mean, it's just it feels like a dumpster fire, and I'm happy it's not the Browns this year.
The one thing that baffles me is like, yeah, I think it was the NFL that advertised it on their Instagram accounts, like rewatch the Steelers Jaguars divisional round game. So I went on YouTube and I watched just the first quarter, and I was like, man, this team was like so close, man. They beat the Steelers that game, lost to the Pats in the AFC Championship, and it's just like again, I bring it back to Seattle because it's what I'm familiar with. But imagine after 2012 when Seattle didn't even win a Super Bowl yet. They lost in the divisional round to Atlanta, and all of a sudden, like, they were trading Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas or something because it was that bad. Like, just imagine that. Like, I can't wrap my head around. It's like you have all this young talent, and it's like, no, Bobby Wagner's on the block because Pete Carroll pissed him off to the point where we have to trade him in his prime.
Man,
I can't believe it, man, and that's pretty much what's happening in Jacksonville. Ozzy, thoughts, please, before I keep shrugging my shoulders more. I'm just pissed.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Steve, you just brought up some old feelings that I had because I thought I was over the Jalen Ramsey trade, and I know that's not what we're discussing here, but even just that trade just really kind of solidified that this whole team is in disarray when you're trading one of the best young cornerbacks in the game. And so then so not only do they do that, they double down on that and trade away AJ Boye to the Broncos. And I'm just like who are you going to put in the secondary? I think they signed maybe EJ Gaines. I don't know. They signed a couple of lesser tiered players that don't even compare to those guys. You trade away Calais Campbell because you don't have the cap space because you've mismanaged your cap so badly. Which even baffles me more because you had Jalen Ramsey on a rookie contract. So you didn't even, like, one of your best guys is on a rookie contract. You're trading him away for a couple first round picks. So why? So you can squander those picks as well and trade them in 4 years? It just doesn't it's the same thing with the Texans. You get this talent and you keep it and you like build that up to whether not everybody's going to make the Super Bowl, but you're going to build that up to a playoff run, et cetera, et cetera. But no, that team was not built for a one and done. I just don't. No. And sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. I know that's not the point. The whole point is their entire free agency this year, but that's just the story of the Jaguars, and that is kind of how I could sum it up. Is just they're in disarray and they don't know what to do. I love Minshew. I was a part of the Minshew hype, and who does he have? Like the offensive line, I like, but I mean, Fournette you get one good run out of him a game, and it's like a 50-yarder after he averaged 1.7 yards a carry the whole other part of the game. So you don't really have a running back that you'd want with your quarterback. You maybe have a decent offensive line if you can draft another offensive lineman this year. And then Dede Westbrook, etc. I don't know. I just off the top of my head, I don't know what they really have that gets you excited about DJ Chark, Dede Westbrook, and then it's just like the skill position players are just not ideal. And then don't even get me started on the secondary. Who do they have there other than Josh Allen? Like, I don't know. anyways, yeah, it's that team has gone from bad to worse, and they're definitely in the running for first overall pick next year, which sucks because Minshew is lit, and he did a lot with a little last year, and it would have been cool to see him get a fair shake.
I think teams and sometimes fans too, they overvalue cap space. And I think we had this conversation last free agency where there was circles on Twitter saying, well, before we pay Rush, should we consider trading him? Because like think of all the draft picks and cap space we'll have to build up the rest of the team. And it's like, well, you're assuming that you're going to hit on every single draft pick you get for that guy. So even the Seahawks haven't proved they can do. They've each of their last first round picks since like after 2010 have been pretty awful first round picks. So don't overvalue picks and don't overvalue cap space, because cap space at what cost? At the expense of your talent? Like if you can't guarantee, in which most cases you can't, that you're going to get a better player than Jalen Ramsey, Calais Campbell, and Ngakoue, then don't do it. But I feel like sometimes teams, they get a little too infatuated and fans buy into it of cap space and draft picks and think, oh, look at all this great cap space, like we're fucking rich. And it's like, well, no, you just hemorrhaged all your talent. So I think that's a big issue that I see anyways on Twitter, of people really overvaluing the wrong thing. If you have talent, like Ozzy said, keep it, build it, and get somewhere. Obviously, if a player is super disgruntled, you got to get rid of him. But this team's in total disarray compared to being a couple plays away from a Super Bowl appearance.
Right. I totally agree with you, Steve. They're, the Browns actually did it right for once. They built, they cut all the cap space all at once, and then they attacked the draft, and now they're bringing in more talent or signing the talent that they have finally, instead of either trading away or just letting it walk all the time. So I agreed with you 100%.
Ozzy, you're back on video. I thought we lost you there, so good to see your pretty face.
Sorry, boys. My computer has been trash all night. But Steve, your face is no longer frozen. It was frozen the entire time. Wow. I think it was we've been on for 20 minutes. I was staring at your frozen face whenever you were talking, just to kind of feel like I could actually see what you were doing. So you had the same face the whole time. It was just like this.
I could see. You were moving though for me, Steve, so it wasn't good. Frozen all over.
Can you imagine we upload this on YouTube and all people see is just so our three worst teams, to recap, we have the Texans, Bears, and Jaguars. Jaguars possibly being the worst. I don't know. There wasn't in any particular order. These are just the three worst. But we have a couple honorable mentions, and I want to go to Ozzy first here, who hopefully I'm not frozen talking to. Ozzy, your honorable mention hits a little close to home. Do you care to elaborate?
So I got to see the first couple weeks of free agency, the entire Patriots team just leave, apparently. Just all of them. No, a lot of the household names that have been a part of the team for the last few years: Kyle Van Noy, obviously Tom Brady, Danny Shelton, guys that Stephen Gostkowski, among others, all just gone. And it really sucks because as much as I believe in Bill Belichick, and this is kind of what happens, this is just a cycle of the Patriots. They lose a lot of guys. It just, because you lose Brady as well in this offseason to the Buccaneers, which I'm still trying to get over that. It's just, we don't have an answer right now. I think that we have our guy. The rumor around the league is that we have our guy in Jarrett Stidham, which is exciting because he showed enough in the preseason for me to be a little bit excited about. He showed how to throw a pick six when you have a couple score lead late in the game against the Jets. But it was a beautiful ball.
On your chest.
It was a beautiful ball. And so the Patriots, they're in shambles right now. From a roster standpoint, they have next to zero cap, and with 800,000, and they have holes to fill. And so you're going to have to address it through the draft. This is the second year in the row that they're going into the draft with 12 picks.
Zach has a question. Sorry, can we interrupt?
Oh, sorry, I can't see you on my screen. I had my other stuff popped up. What'd you say? Or what'd you want?
How do they have 800,000 in cap space?
Who
when they got rid of so many people?
Man, I would love to know. I would Google it, but I don't want to take up too much time.
Oh
I
man.
just looking at it really quickly, or from based
Hightower.
off my memory. Hightower is, I think we could save 10 million. I don't want to get rid of him, obviously, but we would be able to save like 10 million if we got rid of him. Gilmore's on the cap for 18 million this year, so we'll need to extend him. And because of where we're at and because of the depth at corner, it's been in my mind. Like I'm part of the trade people if it makes sense. And he's the DPOY, but I'm just like, oh man, if we could trade him and get like 2 first-round picks, kind of get like a Jalen Ramsey return for him. You've got J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones, Jason McCourty's coming back for 2 more years. You've got a decent secondary to work with, but I mean that's probably wishful thinking. So probably extend them, but just like we've got a bunch of money tied up on these guys, and it you freaking hate to see it. Because although that was our strength last year, I would just like to have a little more flexibility when, like I said, we have so much uncertainty on this freaking team right now.
Fair enough.
Man,
That does make for a rough free agency. Don't feel sorry for you in the slightest. In fact, good. I hope you guys suck this year. So the honorable mention that came to mind for me were I was gonna say St. Louis Rams, which is hilarious. Los Angeles Rams. First of all, because their trash logo, hate it, don't like it. Um, but jokes aside, I kind of mismanaged this thing from the start. Leonard Floyd, I thought they overpaid for him, but it's only a 1 year, $10 million deal. But what my issue with the Rams is more what they didn't do than what they did do. And I don't think they did much to address their offensive line. They brought back Whitworth for another 2 years. I think he's already 38 or 39 years old. I mean, we've seen what Goff looks like behind poor offensive line play, and that's a deer in headlights. And they didn't do much. Like, no, there was Conklin on the free agency market, and there was another, Balago was on the free agency market. They didn't really go after them because I don't think they could afford any of these guys. So they're forced to bring back those guys. They had to cut Gurley, who they grossly overpaid anyways a couple of years ago. Jared Goff is taking up 18% of their cap. So, and they released Roby Coleman, their nickel corner. So I'm looking at this team and like, again, you think about how short windows are. They were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and now I think this might be the third or fourth best team. That's right, fourth best team in the NFC West after the moves the Cardinals made. So, I mean, I'm not going to underestimate Sean McVay. I'm sure Goff can still perform with what Sean is cooking up. It sounds like, moving on from Gurley, I don't know how that'll impact their offense. It didn't in their playoff runs. C.J. Anderson fit right in. Brandon Cooks wants out. He said, "Someone come get me," or he tweeted something like "free me" or something like that. So this team, yeah, again, it's more of what they haven't done than what they have done, and that's not address their offensive line, and they've had to let some talented players walk. So that's my honorable mention. Not as bad as the Jaguars, Bears, or Texans in my mind, but kind of in that same line of the Patriots. Kind of like just they've had to hemorrhage talent because there's just they're cap strapped. Jared Goff's taken up 18% of their cap. I've said it already, but it's like, I can't get over that. Russell Wilson's only taken up 15% of the Seahawks cap, and he's making $35 million. How is that possible?
Man, and he elevates his team. Like Jared Goff has been good, but like Russell Wilson is the Seahawks offense.
Yeah,
like very clearly elevates the team.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Goff does not. Guys, get to some more positive notes here. Let's talk about who had some great free agencies.
First off, before we get into that, is my camera on? I can't see myself, so I can't.
Your mug is alive and well.
Yeah, you're looking great, my dude.
All right. Best free agency guys now, so we can preach some positivity. Positivity is needed in this time of uncertainty. Let's start with the Los Angeles Chargers guys. I really like what they did here. They knew it wasn't right time to bring Rivers back, and I'm pro Rivers to the Colts, but I don't think it would have made sense to try to bring him back just for the sake of continuity. And it sounds like they're going to run it with Tyrod Taylor, which I was a big proponent of bringing in Cam Newton, but I'm pro Tyrod too. I think he's a good quarterback. I think his ceiling's limited, but I'm excited to see what he does there, and it's cool to see him get the reins. Their coach, Anthony Lynn, I hope I'm saying his first name. I hope that's his first name, Anthony Lynn. Mm-hmm. He's wanted a mobile quarterback for a couple of years now, which Philip obviously is not. So it's cool to see, like, he's going to get full control, Tyrod, and get to go do his thing. And they've helped him out a little bit. They signed Brian Bulaga to be their right tackle, I believe. They're in the position in the draft to address their left tackle, so that remains to be seen. But really great contract for Bulaga. Then on defense, they go and get Harris Jr. and then they go and get Linval Joseph, who used to play for Minnesota. So that kind of solidifies their defense. And the one thing that really makes this for me, that puts them up there, they didn't go and pay Gordon a lot of money. They didn't pay their running back. They didn't overpay the running back, man. I love it. So I'm all for the Chargers offseason. I think they rightfully deserve their props for best free agency on my end anyways. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Zach.
Chargers were on my list as well as one of the best. I'm going to really dive in more to the quarterback end of things here. As you guys know, I love my quarterbacks. Tyrod Taylor. The problem last year was the bad play by the quarterback. It sucks to see Phillip Rivers fall off like that. The O-line wasn't amazing, mind you. I love that they went out and helped the line out and potentially can go get something in the draft here to help that O-line again. That roster, when healthy, is top 10 in the league easily. Tyrod Taylor, you're right on the ceiling thing, Steve, but he is efficient. I think his career completion percentage is 62 to 63%, 54 touchdowns, like 21 interceptions. He's very safe with the ball. That does limit your ceiling, yes, but I don't think the team, like, they bring in an efficiency to the team last year. And, at some point, maybe they should have put Tyrod Taylor in there when Phillip was playing so bad. And we would have seen more wins from them. There were injuries and stuff that hindered them. But get Tyrod, maybe draft a quarterback even, and then start seeing, hi, Jasky. Start seeing some consistency at quarterback. And this team could, a lot of people may see him more as a basement team in their division there, with the Chiefs, Broncos getting better and Raiders even getting better. But, get consistency out of Tyrod, maybe like his prime Bills days. And, you could potentially see him get that team as a whole, not Tyrod elevating them, but getting the team as a whole elevated to kind of where maybe not the 12-4 team we saw 2 years ago, but something close to it. With that defense, man, anything's possible.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Zach. With the whole team kind of raising Tyrod Taylor up, that would be, you don't need a guy who's going to throw 35 touchdowns and 7 picks. You need a guy who's not going to turn the football over and let your defense win you games. And you've got the O-line with the Trey Turner trade and with the Brian Bulaga signing. You've got yourself an offensive line now to protect you. You've got the running back in Austin Eckler and whoever else they sign. They have that Justin Jackson guy, I think his name is, right? And then that receiving core is just like a quarterback's dream. So you've got the pieces on offense. You don't need an elite talent to be at quarterback. You need a guy who's not going to throw 20 picks. And that's exactly who Tyrod Taylor is. I think that the fit is perfect. It's not as fashionable or as nice as a signing of like a Cam Newton or whatever, where you get the face of the franchise, but it's a very safe play. And that defense, they have drafted so well on that defense. It just baffles me.
Derwin James,
and then
Bosa.
Bosa, and they drafted a guy last year in this to go next to Derwin James at safety. I forget his name for the life of me, but they've been drafting very well. That's my point. And they're very young team, and they've just got all the pieces right now to, I want to say, to go toe to toe for that division, but it's tough to say because when you have Patrick Mahomes, who's so electric, and then you're talking about the quarterback on the other team, Tyrod Taylor, trying to lead them, it's going to be a battle. Just because the Chargers team is so talented, but at the end of the day, I think they're definitely going to be in the playoffs this year if Tyrod can be that Bills, or that quarterback that he was with the Bills, like you said, Zach.
Man, with that 7th team being added, I totally see it being a possibility. If we were still looking at 6 teams per conference, I'd say, the Broncos are going to give them a push. I don't know what to expect from the Raiders. I still think they're a quarterback away. I don't believe in Carr or Mariota to really lead that team. I think they're going to have to draft next year. But with 7 teams making it, I can definitely see this Chargers team hitting 10 wins and sneaking in as that 6th or 7th team. Why not?
Yeah.
Give
Oh,
the
yeah.
Chiefs their second seed. 5 through 7 is wide open. Why not?
Well, the
I,
Browns
I
Browns
do like Tyrod on our list for the best free agency. And you know what? Lead this one off. Why are the Browns on? I think you're an I list anyways. I don't know if they made Aussies, but conglomeratively or collectively, they made our list as the best free agency. What moves did they make that allowed them to make this?
Yeah, man. It's going to be biased for me. I'm going to sit here and tell you guys all the great moves that they did. But the truth of the matter is, and I can dive into it a bit too. Like I'll just give you guys a few of them. Jack Conklin from Tennessee, one of the best right tackles for running the football. We got Austin Hooper, tight end with Atlanta. Being said on that one, a lot of people were like, "Oh, highest paid tight end. Why are you doing this?" And at that point when we signed him, I was like, "Oh, maybe we're going to trade Njoku." But looking into it a little bit more, Stefanski, our new head coach, I really like him. He ran the most tight end sets in the NFL last year and by a large margin. So I could see us keeping Njoku and running double tight end sets with Austin Hooper. And I think he also ran the most like 3 tight end sets in the NFL last year
Oh
too. So
wow.
very interesting. And I really like it because Jack Conklin's going to help the run game. We didn't really need help there, but like improve it and elevate it more with Chubb there and Kareem Hunt all year. Holy shit. And we bring in Case Keenum. The best, like this was a really good fit. You look at Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum and him kind of, you see the maturity in Case Keenum, but you see the similarity in their traits, the way, they're both shorter statured quarterbacks. And, Case Keenum's done some nice things. We brought in Andrew, now I'm going to butcher this, Sendejo.
Oh, from the
from
Vikings, right?
Sendejo.
Thank
Sendejo.
you.
Yeah.
He started many games with the Minnesota Vikings and was more than just an average safety in that time. But it brings depth there where we needed it. We brought in B.J. Goodson from the Packers, brings in depth at linebacker. I wish we had another big signing at linebacker. That's the one place we didn't really improve too much. And D-tackle Andrew Billings and now defensive end Adrian Claiborne recently. I like the depth we're bringing in, and we are being aggressive, as Barry, our general manager, said we would be, which I like. So, bringing in all this talent and this depth where we lacked last year, I think is going to allow us to kind of be more sturdy down the road. Last year was just a whole kerfuffle, and I feel like these signings felt all in the same depth as like the same vision. Like they didn't all seem like they were weird signings, but like with good players that just didn't fit together. It felt like we were kind of going to the same narrative, and that is a big deal for Cleveland.
It's almost the opposite of what the Bears are doing, right? You mentioned the Bears are kind of just grabbing what talent they can right now, whereas the Browns seem more strategic. And I thought about the Claiborne one. That's, when you saw when Garrett went out, your pass rush kind of disappeared. And now you have, supplements to that, and you're going to have Garrett back. And now you have guys to kind of come in on third down to help
Right.
him. Like that's huge. I love the Keenum signing. I don't like him as a starter. I wouldn't do what Denver did to just give him the keys to the franchise for a year and then have to trade him. But as a backup, like that has to be the best backup quarterback in the league. Like that's straight
Arguably.
up. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I love it. Ozzy, what are your thoughts? They didn't make your list, but are you still impressed with what they did?
They were going to be one of my honorable mentions before I knew that we were going to do an honorable mentions list. I really did like how they addressed the offensive line. It wasn't the need left tackle that they needed, but I mean, getting a Pro Bowl left or right tackle, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Andrew Sendejo, I really liked, even though he is 30. You needed a safety, and so you get that safety in Andrew Sendejo. So 2 areas of need. I just think that you can't go wrong. And then again, Zach, you talked about depth. Adrian Claiborne, he played with the Patriots, so I'm familiar with him. A couple of the other guys I'm not too familiar with, but again, like I mean, I can see it in you. Like you're getting pretty amped up, and like the fact that the Browns have cap space, like this totally baffles me. When we talk about teams like the Jaguars who don't know how to manage their cap and how they maybe try to do it a little too much, like the Browns right now are in prime spot. Tennessee Titans are another good example. They can make these big signings every single year, and then, but then they always have cap to keep doing it. It seems like it totally baffles me. And these other teams have to take note. I think the Browns actually have the most cap space or second most cap space in the league right now. And look at that roster. Where's a hole in that roster?
We got like linebacker. We need to sign
Linebacker
a
and left
linebacker, but
tackle.
right, we have like 44 million still, and
Yeah.
that's insane. Because like thinking about the talent, it's because we have a lot. We had really good drafts with Dorsey, and that's allowing us to now have more cap space now, which is freaking awesome. Hopefully, we can do something with it and not in classic Cleveland fashion just shit the bed. So I'm pretty excited for this year, and it feels like Stefanski's bringing a little bit of a vision with him, which I really like.
A tear just welled up in my eye because I'm so
Oh,
excited for the Browns.
I'm gonna watch all their games, man. I'm pretty fired up to watch them in action too. Like I said, man, it's Baker Redemption Tour
I love it.
2020. Yeah,
Oh, it pumps me
let's
up.
go, baby. Um, so this third team, evidently enough, didn't make my list, but I understand, like, because I was high on them early on, but I think I'm more high on their draft capital than what they maybe did in free agency. I like the signing of Byron Jones, and we're talking about the Dolphins, by the way. I like the signing of Byron Jones. I like even Kyle Van Noy signing. I just don't know. These Byron Jones is like an A player, like a top tier player, but like Van Noy and the other signings they made kind of seem, and the Flower signing, they seem like kind of B level players to me. So they didn't quite make my list, but I'd have heard. I know collectively they made our list. So Ozzy, we'll go to you right away. What was it about the Dolphins off season in your division that put them on your list for best free agency period?
It was the fact that they're bringing in so much talent, and I know we just talked about how the Browns kind of did that last year, just bringing in talent and stuff like that, and the Bears this year, and I I don't get the thought that that's what the Dolphins are doing just for the sake of doing it. Brian Flores is a guy who last year he maximized the talent that was on the roster. So if you bring in a bunch of talent, a bunch of like above average to elite level guys, I mean, you got a coach like that, there's going to be some magic. And so I think that they're doing it very, very well. It's easy to say that right now. We'll see how it turns out down the road. But you get Byron Jones, Emmanuel Ogba. So you have Emmanuel Ogba, and you bring in Shaq Lawson. So that's for your edge rushers, and then you bring in Kyle Van Noy, who can do it all. Landon Roberts was a leader on the Patriots. He was actually, I think, a captain this year. So he wasn't ever a guy that took up a lot of snaps, but he is a guy that was kind of growing in that role. And so I'm excited to see how he flourishes again under Brian Flores on that team. I was pretty big on the Eric Flowers signing, a pretty low risk guard uh, pickup because he was right tackle for a while and he was considered a bust at that position. But at guard last year, he did more than well. And you bring in Ted Karras, who played center for the Patriots in a relief role for David Andrews, and he actually did pretty good last year. So you kind of as I mentioned, you really beef up that defense entirely from from the D line all the way down to the secondary. Like every area's added new talent, and then you address the offensive line, and that's a perfect spot to be in as you go into a draft where you're probably going quarterback. And I mean,
Tua.
yeah, Tua just seems too perfect there. You could go ahead and draft a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, all in the first round with all three first round picks, and that team is just check mark. That is a very talented freaking team, ready for some magic, perhaps.
Ozzy did a great job recapping all of it. Zach, any way to add to that?
Man, I was just gonna kind of jump in and Ozzy, you freaking killed that because going into it, I put them on my list as top guys or top team for free agency with getting all the talent. They were lacking talent, and they still did quite well for that team last year. Just shows Flores how amazing he is, and he's growing on me. But I was kind of looking at that after we had discussed prior about how teams are just like the Bears, just bringing on talent to try and mold it together. But there seems to be, like, with every single signing here, like a reason for it, and I like that. Emmanuel Ogba was a Brown. I was sad to see him get traded away when he did. But like the Van Noy, I like that he was a big presence for the defense in New England, as you're saying, and just bringing all that talent in with so much cap that they had. We then talked about that difference between, you have this much cap and, like, are we overvaluing it? And they're like, well, we have all this cap. We might as well go get talent. And I'm like, yes, good for now, because you have so much of it. You're not going into a shitty situation, because now when you start drafting the guys you want, because they did trade away the safety there, Mika Fitzpatrick and Laramie Tunsil, they're young guys that they drafted prior, to now start, I think, drafting now for the talented guys they want to sign 4 years or 5 years down the road from there. All these contracts that they're signing today are going to be coming to the end at that point. So then they can all start signing those rookies to the big contracts that deserve it, which all in the end looks really good, because now they have a super talented roster with now 3 first-round picks that they're going to bring on a bunch of amazing players. Hopefully, they have 6 in the top 3. And then by the time those guys need to be re-signed, all these guys are going to be older and at the end of their contracts, and they're going to be able to sign them. That is making a freaking good roster right there very quickly on a very good turnaround. So, man, good things coming with Miami, I think. I'm believing in that. I guess I shouldn't say I think, but I do believe.
I think you guys hit it, and I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't know if they come out of the gate with all this talent. I think it's going to take a year to shape it. It's like 6-10, a very competitive 6-10, or maybe even a 7-9 year before next year potentially like really hitting the gas and making a playoff push. But it depends what they do too. I don't know if Tua will be. Tua says, I just saw a thing today that he says he could start right now if he wants. Like, he's fully healed and everything. I mean, we'll let NFL doctors decide that. Maybe he's just trying to boost that draft stock. But whether or not he decides they redshirt and a full year in like the system, you Ben Simmons him essentially, and be out there, let him redshirt a year essentially, and come in the next year, and this dude's ready to ball out. Like, so it could be.
Imagine getting Tua at pick 5. Like, Tua should be, if we're going quarterback first. I like Joe Burrow. Tua is amazing. Like, amazing. He has all the traits. It's just that health, man. And like, if he gets to the Dolphins, imagine that. Imagine that.
Oh my God. We could be living in a world, and in a year from now, the Patriots are the worst team.
Well, I mean, the Jets, we could have easily mentioned the Jets.
They played teams tough. They played teams tough.
I mean, we're talking about their free agencies. The Jets could easily be described as one of the worst for free agents so far, and we'll see how their team is when they field it hopefully this year. But
I don't even remember what they've done.
They haven't done a whole lot of anything. That's why. That's the problem. They've retained some people, and they've added some small tier or lower tiered players. So they haven't done a whole lot. The Jets they have cap space too, and they're just not using it. So they're like the anti-Dolphins.
Sam Darnold. Sam, Mr. Mono Darnold.
Their best move has been getting rid of Tremaine Johnson, who they also signed to a horrific contract. So,
did they find anyone that wants to trade for Le'Veon Bell in that contract? Probably not. So, okay, let's get to our honorable mentions, guys. So to recap, we had we had the Browns. Why am I skipping the first team? The Chargers, Browns, and Dolphins is our 3 winners of free agency. Honorable mention, the Baltimore Ravens. So it's not often we see a 14-2 team come in and be so aggressive in free agency, but after getting embarrassed in the divisional round to a wild card team, probably causes a few things to try to even stack up a little more. They think windows are short. They're going to have to pay Lamar Jackson in a year or 2 years. So got to capitalize now. So what they did is they went and they spent a 5th round pick on Calais Campbell. Don't know how they pulled that off, but they got him. Then they went and signed Derek Wolfe to only add to their pass rush. I believe he could play a little interior as well. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
He sure can. He can play
good. Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Zach just learned about the Wolf signing before the podcast, and I wish we would have waited until we were live before that would have been awesome. His reaction was priceless, but even this is good. It's just joke. They franchise tagged Judon, so I'm not sure if they do decide to trade him. I think they'll get good value for him. And if they don't, then you got Judon still. And then they flipped Hayden Hurst for a second, which I think is great. They have a pretty stacked tight end room as it is. And so, they have, what's his name? Mark Andrews?
Yeah. And Boyles? Yeah. I think it's Boyle. Yeah. God.
So they got a second for Hurst. So Campbell, Wolf, and Hurst, and trading Hurst for second to me is just the rich getting richer. This team won 14 games last year. Lamar Jackson's the MVP. That's why they're an honorable mention for me, as I'm sure anything to add on that one there will go to you first, Ozzy.
Yeah, no, Steve, you hit it on the head there. I mean, when you can get Calais Campbell, you've got the cap space to bring in a guy like that. The Jags just had to get rid of him one way or another because they were cap strapped. And then you got Derek Wolfe, who is a versatile defensive lineman who can play on the inside, he can play on the outside. I was hoping the Patriots would get him because he's a perfect fit. But the Ravens they build their teams very similarly to how Bill Belichick likes his, and it's just you hate to see it, and especially Zach, you being a Browns fan, you really hate to see it. Where is the weakness on that team? You just can't find it. We talked off air about the secondary, how just for cornerbacks alone, you've got Brandon Carr, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, and then at safety Earl Thomas, and just it blows your mind. And then now you've got these guys to go along with that. Matt Judon, who's still on there, who was supposed to be traded supposedly, and now he's just maybe they just keep him. What the hell? Go get a Super Bowl real quick with Matt Judon on the franchise tag. I don't know. But I just can't. I don't know if that team. Health along the offensive line. You usually see it. Teams go through their waves of injuries, and I'm not wishing anything on anybody, but they were healthy along the offensive line last year, were they not? And they just lost their right guard to retirement. I can't remember his name now. But so maybe that's the only spot that I can think of. I don't know. That would be one. That team is prepped and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm not going to jump in a lot. It makes me sad to think about it. That Wolf one really got to me before the podcast started because I was a huge Wolf fan. You could talk to our buddy Tomac about it. Me and him would talk about Wolf and how good he was for the Broncos for so long. And now just adding a veteran presence like him who can play along the defensive line wherever. Plus, I don't want to talk about it anymore. It hurts because finally, isn't this hilarious? The one time the Browns have, honestly, don't kill me for saying this, a championship roster. That roster is unbelievable. Every other freaking team in our division, could be one of the best divisions in football. Cincinnati, not an honorable mention, but they did some nice things so far, and they can do some really nice things this draft. Plus what the Ravens do, and then the Steelers are just always there, those freaking Steelers. And then the Browns are finally this good, and I have to deal with all this shit. So, frick off.
Yeah, Golden Boy and Joe Burrow in the division. Oh, him and Baker, man.
Oh, man.
First overall picks.
That is going to be good. AFC North and AFC East are going to be pretty good divisions in the years to come, man. Holy crap.
Yeah, no. That's all I got to say.
AFC West, we talked about putting out of the AFC West. The Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs. Speaking of the Broncos, guys, This will make Tomac happy. Another honorable mention of ours. Um, the only move I can think of right now, guys, I'm totally blanking out, is that they signed Melvin Gordon, and that's the one move I'm not a big fan of because I feel like they kind of paid him a little too much. But I mean, hey, him and Lindsey is going to be a great tandem in the back there. I'm totally blanking on what else. They got Boye, right? They traded for Boye.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looks
There's
like
more
Oz
too.
left connection
Um,
issues.
I'll go if that's okay. Then
Yeah,
with the
please go.
Broncos.
Yeah, because
Um,
I
I absolutely love those are the two that I was gonna bring up the Boye trade and the other one you said there. I actually like the Gordon one because I don't
yeah,
think now Tomac will correct me when he listens to this, but I think Gordon only signed to a 1 year deal or something. Is that not right?
I think it's 8
2 year
million though.
for
Is it 8
oh
million a
yeah,
year?
but it's if it's a 2 year thing, he isn't.
Yeah,
I don't agree to the big signings of running backs too. I'm actually
yeah,
all for that. But if it's a short term and you can get out of it, I'm okay with it because
fair
that
enough.
team it feels like because that O line was built to run the ball. Lindsey was great. They're actually overcrowded in the running back field because last year, man, at Lindsey and number 28, Royce Freeman
Freeman.
Yeah,
was absolutely outstanding. Those two running backs. You're now bringing in Gordon. Like there's not enough room for the three of them at that point, which means hey, some teams might be shopping around for like Royce Freeman for a pretty cheap like draft. Like I could see somebody trade for like a fourth or fifth round pick for Royce Freeman on his rookie contract, who was the first round pick. Man, like that's good for another team, not them, so to speak. But it's just I really like what the Broncos did, and I know we're missing a signing or something. Ozzy,
Jarrell Casey. That's the
The
yes,
one. I just
yeah,
have to
trade.
Google it. They traded for him for a seventh.
man.
Like, and that D line is already. They run a 3-4, so you got Von Miller, and you got Casey. I think they're gonna plug him at the end. I don't think he's a nose tackle, but you have him at either the end spots there in the
D,
3-4.
D tackle, yeah, or no, if it's a 3-4, it'd be a DN for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think I've
Aussie
been
thoughts. I'm sure you probably know more than I do on this Broncos team. Tomac's gonna scold me, but I, I just totally blanked on him. But
Yeah.
Casey's a big one.
I left for when you were recapping some of their stuff, but yeah, the Boye trade, Melvin Gordon, Zach spoke on. Graham Glasgow was, I believe, a guard
Lines.
um, for the Lions. Yeah, and he is a guy who has, I think, only missed 2 games in his 4 year or whatever career. The last 2 years he hasn't missed a game, and the Broncos have an offensive line who quite frankly, I think 3 people on that offensive line, 3 starters were injured at various points throughout the year last year. So they get a guy who they really need, just a durable guy, and you just need a body there, and let Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay just do the rest of the work. Quite honestly, so that was a awesome pickup. Justin Simmons is. We did an exercise in our group chat, doing like building a defense, and I left Justin Simmons out of my top 2 for safeties, but he is right up there, top 4, top 5 guy. So you've got him franchise tagged and hopefully extend him to a long-term deal. But that Jarrell Casey deal too, like again, this is another team that just went through it from top to bottom on defense and even on offense too. I mean, with the Gordon and Glasgow signings, this team is ready. This is another team where I look at the offense. I'm like, okay, offensive line, check. Quarterback, check, I think.
They
Skill
probably draft
position, check.
or they probably draft a receiver. If like
Draft,
Tomac doesn't want
yeah.
Ruggs, but like if Judy's there or
CD Lamb,
yeah, if Lamb's there. I
yeah.
don't know why he doesn't want Ruggs. I forget what his issue is with them, but like even if they got Ruggs, I mean from an outside perspective, like just like kind of a surface level, like that's another receiver to go pair with Sutton.
Sutton,
man.
yeah.
Sutton was
Because you got
amazing last year.
exactly. That's their only need on offense, really, is just getting that second receiver. Which to say that's all they're missing is a second receiver is pretty invaluable. But I mean, when you are in this draft class, this is a dream draft class for the Broncos to be in, for that to be their need. And then on defense, they're historically great, but now your secondary is filled with Bryce Callahan at slot corner. You've got now you bring in AJ Boye
Kareem
and
Jackson.
Kareem Jackson, who had a good year. I think Tomac was saying they moved him to safety. Justin Simmons, as I mentioned, Von Miller along the defensive line, and Jarrell Casey now. Not to mention Bradley Chubb. So
fuck, forgot about
him.
Shit.
This whole team is ready to eat, and Tomac's excited. And that AFC West, I feel like I'm overhyping because I feel like I'm talking about every team as if they're a playoff contender. But that's really how this feels. Like the Chargers are ready, the Broncos are ready, the Raiders are on the cusp, and then the Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. They're obviously going to be fighting for that again. So that AFC West, there's 3 teams again that we could see if Drew Lockett really hits next year. We could see them as another playoff team, because I just think they're so close to contention. Linebacker seems to be the number 2 receiver seem to be the only needs on the Broncos.
Yeah. Maybe Peyton will come back 44 years old, be like, move over Drew Lock. Yeah, this was a wild free agency to say the least. And the day free agency opened in March, there was such a nice change of pace from everything that's going on in the world. Obviously, it's no secret, coronavirus has consumed everything we talk about because it's a global issue and it's something we've never experienced before in this generation anyway. So I'm glad NFL's come to kind of swoop in, and the draft's still going to go ahead, albeit with modified arrangements, but that'll be a lot of fun. That's happening April 23rd. We haven't really discussed it yet, but I'm sure we'll be going live on Instagram and conversing with everyone. So I'm really excited for that, and God bless the NFL for giving us something to talk about. I love critiquing these certain things and building teams and just seeing how everyone kind of puts it together, and some correctly and some incorrectly, like if you're Bill O'Brien and the Texans. So this was a great free agency. If you guys, not YouTube, but if our listeners or those maybe watching this on YouTube agree or disagree, let us know, man. DM us individually, DM the agency account. We'll bring your takes to our next episode, and we'll talk about them. If you think, hey, Steve, like, why didn't you mention the Raiders, man? What about the Raiders? We'll talk about the Raiders next episode, man. You guys just got to let us know. So that concludes our recap, top down of NFL free agency. If we get a couple of interviews lined up, we'll hit those in the next couple of weeks. But if not, we're on to some draft prep, guys. Get to see kind of what we want to do. Maybe the Seahawks will sign to Javian Clowney. Maybe we won't. Keeping our eyes on that. But really quick on Canadian corner and all. I want to see people. I want to see time for Canadian corner, eh? Do the noises, coward. Oh, that's great. Really quick news on the CFL, man. Guys. They pushed back their training camps, unfortunately. So, there we go. That's why. When we were talking to Ricky, called an active thing on it, but he's still expecting the season to kind of go through at this point. That's all he's been told. But as soon as obviously we published that, the day later they pushed back training camp. So that's pretty sad. But Fajardo came out and said he's pretty excited about this new high-flying offense him and Jason Maas have been working on in the offseason. Sounds like they've been working together on the playbook, which is really great. I love to hear that coordinator-quarterback camaraderie. So won't be running the ball on 1st and 10 so much, hopefully. That'll be great. So I'm hoping the CFL kicks off on time. If not, if it kicks off at Labor Day and they play 9 games in a race to the Grey Cup, that's cool too. At this point, nothing's off the table for any sport really, but we take it one day at a time, and we'll keep providing the content. And if we got to pivot to food takes permanently for the foreseeable future, then that's what we do. We'll come here and talk KD all day, baby. That's what we do. So you can find me on Twitter at SteveBolin22. You can find me on Instagram at SteveBolin_. Please don't make a fake Instagram account impersonating me, by the way. That was really scary. Got a DM saying, hey, is this you? No, that was not me. Someone just trying to hijack my identity. Identity theft is no joke, Jim. But yeah, find us on Twitter, find us on Instagram, agency accounts, personal accounts. Ozzy, where can the find?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. Oh,
I still hear you.
Oh, okay. You're coming in a little bit late there. I think my computer's just crapping out on me. So, but you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AustinPaul_. That's Austin with a Y, not an I. I don't know. I gotta get used to this video thing. I was trying to be creative, but that didn't work out. So
Zach, where can everyone find you living the dream?
Oh, and I was just about to say, find me living the dream. Thank you, Steven. They can find me on Twitter at Zach Foth and on Instagram at ZachFoth_.
Awesome. And if anyone kind of, audio quality might not be on par, we went from Zencaster, switched to Skype. I was going to say Spotify. Not on that Zoom train yet. I guess you got to pay for that. So we're not doing that. We already do enough paying for this. So, yeah, apologies in advance, but maybe we'll bring some more visual content for you guys going forward. But in the meantime, stay safe. Good night. Godspeed.
Ayo.
Oh, yeah. I was going to wait for the outro and I forgot we're on Skype. All right. Ciao.